It's been said before, and I'll say it again. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So where would you rather be than right here and right now on the Ralph Rant? Let's go.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant, your source for hard-hitting Buffalo Bills takes. Now, here's your host of the Ralph Rant, that veteran watcher of generations of Bills teams, the prophet who predicted Josh Allen's greatness, that opinionated so-and-so you've walked out on parties because of, the Ralph.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant. Good morning from wherever you may be. We are here. It is pregame. It is week 18. It is what many think is the very final game at Highmark Stadium, Rich Stadium, the Ralph, whatever you care to term it as. I beg to differ. If you watch my video from the other night, I believe there will be one more game at the stadium this season. We'll get to why when we get a little further into the show, but again, welcome in. Glad to have you in. I want to get right to the comments, see who's in the house here early. Raise your coffee. As you can see, I've got the large martini flagon here, well insulated against the chill of the studio. Got some heavy whipping cream, not whipped up, but just the cream in the coffee here this morning. And peeking at Buffalo Stadium live cam, we are watching the tailgating proceedings over here. I could probably bring that up if I get ambitious, but you could check it out just as well. A few additions to the studio here. Must mention this one, definitely. My good friend Bruce sent me an image of him and I. Oops, to get it out of that light field there. On the field at the Ralph, following the defeat of the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is a picture actually Mrs. Ralph had mounted on a board and laminated for me. Nice little peg so it stands up. That's on the new shelf back here. Also got the Nowhere Else You'd Rather Be book. And this is a relic that was worth putting on the show today. This is a famous NFL team coffee cup, or whatever you care to put into it. It's actually a little dusty on this side there. Heavens to Betsy. I guess the red helmets are a bit dusty, but they are coming out today. The Bills will be in the excuse me, in their red helmets, in Super Bowl era gear. So it should be an interesting game. It's obviously a game that the import of the game itself is not that huge. Again, we are not anticipating the Bills quarterbacked by Brady Cook. I believe that's his name on the Jets side of the ball. With a Jets team that's been flagging, with a Jets team that's battling to have maybe the worst record in the league, you're not letting them come in on the last regular season game at the Ralph and winning. It's not happening. And I think if we get a few hookups from Mitch Trubisky to Tyrell Shavers, we'll be just fine. Just don't want to see anybody hurt today. It does not seem to be a terribly inclement day, actually, in terms of the weather. So we'll get to the weather forecast also. We'll talk about injuries. And, of course, we could talk about the games last night and then, of course, the games today that have a big impact on where the Bills might find themselves in this wild card seeding. If you caught the video we just got out the other night, I went through my feelings on how this could turn out. And a lot of interesting questions, especially for some other teams, as far as where they might end up. And, of course, then tonight ends up the regular season, the Sunday night contest, with essentially a playoff game. The Ravens will be visiting the Steelers. It's a win, and you're in as the AFC North champion. Lose, and you are home. You are buying the chips and getting the beer on ice because you're going to be watching it from home and not in the tournament. And I think it's interesting from the standpoint that there's some of these games that are win and you're in, or games where teams will be trying to win in order to maintain a seeding position or move into a desired seeding position, are going to have to actually put guys on the field and play today. And one thing you'd like to do with your season is kind of turn it into a bye at the end. Now we're watching here Blizzard Brew on the tailgate cam, a bunch of Bills fans there. And I think they are having a photographic moment there. Yep, they're moving off of there, and I think we'll get the next group in. So it looks like a fun day at the stadium. And what is that weather? Let's talk about it right here. Got it available to us. So today it is a slight chance of snow showers before 4 p.m. Mostly cloudy with a high near 27, wind 8 to 10 miles per hour. Chance of precipitation is 20%. No, it does not look like it is going to be a snow globe game. It will be a little bit colder. The 27 degrees. I was there for the Bengals game, and it was hovering closer to 30. But it is definitely snowing there now. Getting a look at that. Oh, there's somebody's bar set up. And, of course, it looks like it's snowing more heavily because the stadium cam, which is mounted on a tree over at the Gorilla Gear Garage, is looking through a good bit of distance to telescope in on that nicest selection of liquors and mixers on the table. And certainly, if you've been following the progress of the new stadium, it's looking great. They do a drone video from Buffalo Stadium Live. You can see a lot of the grounds have been done now with the sidewalks poured and the areas for fans to come into. The exterior of the stadium is pretty much completely clad now. They're working on interior. Let's jump on a few comments here. Badass Merch was in here early. Go Bills. Watching the tailgate cam on the rant. Yes, absolutely. Somebody's calling it the Buffalo Bills versus New Jersey Jets tailgater cam. And they are indeed the New Jersey Jets. Hell yeah, the red helmet mug. All right. Mark is here. Morning, Ralph. It's going to be kind of bittersweet game today. Enjoy, man. Yeah, bittersweet, definitely. And it's interesting because the Bills are ending up the stadium in the regular season with the very same opponent they opened it with in the regular season, the New York Jets. And that very first game was September 30th, 1973. I believe that is correct. I think it was the Bills. Obviously, it was the Bills' home opener. I think they had been playing football for a week or two already, so it may have been game 2 or 3 of the season. The Bills were still Reading. I've got the red on the mind. We're still wearing the old Standing Buffalo helmets. And I've got a dog pounding to get in. No, not now, pup. We'll go out and throw the ball later. Dog knows it's game day. Anxious. But the Bills were wearing the old Standing Buffalo uniforms. They were playing against the Jets with Joe Namath at quarterback. Incredibly. I was at that game. We were down in essentially the southeast corner of the stadium, end zone, essentially. Down a little farther in the bowl, too. I think we were a little closer to the sidelines. The Bills won that game 9-7. The game was not as close as it sounded. John Leipold had kicked 3 field goals, putting the Bills up 9-0. And there was a garbage time Jets touchdown right at the end of the game. Going. There we go. The mouse is a little bit tired this morning on the clicks. Continuing here, Jacob Spears is with us. I still believe Bills are going to the Super Bowl. Yes, I do also. And I've actually given my predictions for the AFC side of the playoff tournament on the video the other night. But with a win today, the Bills can secure the 6th seed. It's pretty likely that'll happen. Right now, the 3 wild card seeds, 5, 6, and 7, are the Houston Texans, the Los Angeles Chargers, and then the Bills at 7. However, one of the big keys today, and this will be at the same time the Bills are playing, is that the Broncos will be hosting the Chargers. And the Broncos, with a win, will get the number 1 seed in the playoffs and earn the bye for the wild card weekend next weekend. And it's probably likely that they will do that because the Chargers are resting many starters, including Justin Herbert. Makes kind of sense for the Chargers. They've got some injuries. Herbert's still recovering from the hand surgery he had several weeks ago, but he's never missed a game with it at all. But the fact that they are resting so many starters tells me that the Broncos, and they might even be able to do it without having it a 1-score game that they just managed to win at the end, but beat the Chargers. And by beating the Chargers, and if you're counting on that, and then also by the Bills beating the Jets, which I'm counting on that also, that means that the Chargers and the Bills would swap seeds, all other things notwithstanding, putting the Bills at the number 6 and the Chargers at 7. Now, the Texans are hosting the Colts, and whereas you'd think the Colts would like to do some ruining of the Texans' season, they're actually starting Riley Leonard, who you actually heard some podcasters, including Joe Marino, sort of jokingly about the comparisons, but he believes some of them are there between Riley Leonard and Josh Allen. However, Riley Leonard will be starting for the Colts. Phillip Rivers is sitting down. He put in some great games. It's unfortunate how it turned out for the Colts. But that would make me believe that the Texans are trying to win that game over the Colts, not only to maintain their number 5 seed position, because if they and the Bills end up tied, of course, the Texans hold the tiebreaker over the Bills due to the loss the Bills took 23-20 or 24-20, I believe it was, several weeks ago. But the other thing is that the Texans are duty bound to actually play hard in this game because they are also attempting to overtake, if they can, the Jaguars for the AFC South title. And were the Jaguars to lose to the Titans today, and were the Texans to beat the Colts, they would swap, and the Texans actually end up as the number 3 seed, if that's how it turns out, because there are more permutations also, and I'm jumping around here with it, but between New England and the Jaguars for the 2 or the 3 seed, which I'm not sure if it matters much to either, but the Jaguars with a win and the Patriots with the loss to the Dolphins, which Dolphins might actually present some bit of competition to the Patriots today, but that would swap them, and then you would have Jacksonville as the 2 seed if they win, and the Patriots at the 3 seed. And if the Bills end up at number 6, they, of course, will be playing number 3. Right now, that would be the Jaguars. If the Jaguars lose and Houston wins, it would be Houston. Bills would visit the Texans for the wild card round. If the Jaguars win, doesn't matter what Houston does, and the Patriots lose and they swap, then it will be the Patriots in the 3 seed. So there are big possibilities of how this could go down. And the NFL has made it, like I mentioned in the video, interesting without the scoreboard watching aspect being able to play a part. For years now, the NFL has done nothing but division games on the last week of the season. And that helps for taking these determinations of seeding and division winners right down to the wire. And then they even get more devious by putting these games on at times where scoreboard watching is not possible. So, for example, the Patriots will be playing at the same time as the Broncos and Chargers. So the Patriots won't know if there's a reason for them to play harder with the possibility of getting the number 1 seed in the unlikely event that the Chargers were to beat the Broncos. Well, you can't scoreboard watch during the game. So with that being the case, I think we're going to see both the Broncos and the Patriots, and then also the Jaguars, and, of course, Steelers and Bengals. All 4 of those teams have to put in a game. All 4 of those teams cannot afford to rest players. And that's significant because only one of those 4 will be off next week. So watch for that when you're talking about this. So, yes, I believe that they are going to the Super Bowl. Jacob Spears, go Bills indeed. Billy the Buffalo is with us. Go Bills, good morning. Good morning to everyone. If you're out there, just go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know where you are. I think the Philly loss ticked Josh off and pissed off Allen is a locked-in Allen. I believe this is our year. The Bills are Super Bowl bound. And now that you mention that, I'm going to make a comment on that. I mean, I'm going to refer back to something. Let's just leave that up there for a second. But I'm going to refer to something that we saw actually the day after the Bills lost to the Texans when Josh Allen was out at Laramie and having his jersey retired with the Wyoming Cowboys. And it's funny, you think he'd be there in a tux or whatever. He was just in a hoodie, which was cool. And he spoke to the Wyoming Cowboys football team. And he told them that he loves this game and he loves to win, but he also loves how he felt that day. And how did he feel that day? Well, he had the hell beat out of him, of course, with 8 sacks by the Texans. The Bills had lost in something of a heartbreaking fashion. And he loved the feeling. And why? Well, it's because loss is the overriding creator of emotion in the NFL. Loss sticks with the teams and players far more than wins do. They are remembered much more than the wins are. But I believe Josh Allen uses these as inspiration. And there are teams heading into these playoffs that have winning streaks going. Of course, the Patriots' winning streak got ended. The Texans still have a streak going. Jacksonville has won a number of games in a row. And my belief is the more games that you win, you're starting to step out closer and closer to this ledge where you are getting closer to a loss. The NFL is very difficult. So it's not as if you can go through and expect to win every game. I mean, even college is changing now too with the transfer portal and NIL. It's making the college football a far more interesting game. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But I believe that the losses kind of fuel Josh Allen. And the Bills proved they could quite nearly win without Josh. I mean, essentially, they did win somewhat without Josh visiting the Browns the week before. And then they nearly did so versus the Eagles. It's a missed throw at the end. As you know, I agree totally with the idea of not trying to go to overtime. Yes, the Bills had momentum, but I did not want to see the team expose players on the field past that 60-minute mark. You already have a playoff spot secured. And frankly, the fact that you got knocked out of the 5 seed with that loss might actually end up being beneficial for the Bills. Let's go on here with the comments. Badass merch. As long as the Pats don't get number 1, I'm happy. I think we can count on that. I believe the Broncos are going to attempt to go ahead and get that done and get that number 1 seed, which would make you think, okay, well, the Patriots have the 2. If they don't think they can get the 1, might they just rest players? Well, the problem, again, with that is that if you rest, you're playing a Miami team that actually looked pretty tough last week, Patriots. And that Miami team, if it beats you, you will switch spots with the Jaguars for the 2 and the 3 seeds. And then you'll end up having your nightmare, the Buffalo Bills, showing up at your place next weekend. It's a consideration, I'm sure. Black Cloud is with us. Only way Bills make the Super Bowl is if the defense plays perfectly and the offense plays perfectly. Can't have a game like last week where the defense was lights out and the offense flopped. No, I'm not worried about that. When we get to the actual playoffs, the offense, Josh Allen will be fine. It's a different gear. Allen was injured against the Browns, and he wasn't exactly himself versus the Eagles. I think he'll get out there for a play, maybe a series, but more likely just a play. And I think the Buffalo Bills come out and get this done today and win this game. Don't allow the Jets to win the last game at the Ralph, and then get themselves firmly into that 6 seed position. Now, the only way the Bills end up with a 5 seed is that if they beat the Jets and the Broncos defeat the Chargers, but Houston would have to lose to the Colts also to get to that 5 seed. But if you saw what I went through with the playoffs the other day on the video, I've reasoned that Buffalo at the 5 seed would end up going and beating Jacksonville. You got the or the 6 seed would go and beat the 3 Jacksonville. I keep on saying the 5. You'd have Houston going to the Ravens if the Ravens win tonight and are the 4 seed. I've got Houston losing that game. And then you'd have the Chargers going to the Patriots, 7 going to 2, and the Chargers winning that game. Now, if that's the case, the seeds that are left are Denver is the number 1, and then you have to go down all the way to the Ravens at number 4, the Bills, the highest remaining seed after that, and then the Chargers after that. And then I've got San Diego. I still want to call them that. Then I've got the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Denver and defeating the Broncos in the divisional playoff round. And I've got the Bills defeating the Ravens in the divisional round at their place. And if that happens, then the Buffalo Bills would be hosting the AFC title game at the Ralph. So, yes, there is a possibility of another game at the stadium after today if the playoffs work out like that. Black Cloud again. Bills will have to win 3 on the road. If we see Houston, that's a nightmare game for our offense. I'm not so sure about that. It's hard to beat a team twice in one season. And the Bills would definitely have something to counteract that defense. And let's not forget, despite the 8 sacks, despite the ugliness of the game, the Bills were still this far from winning that game at Houston. You cannot forget that. You throw to Gabe Davis on the right sideline, an inch of his foot out of bounds. That would have made a difference. Then the throw that got tipped by Will Anderson Jr. at the line, that would have dropped into Khalil Shakir's hands otherwise, and he may well have scored on that play. And the Bills still had a chance until Dion felt it necessary to stretch his back and stand up before the snap of the ball that took a 4th and 2 to like a 4th and 7. It was that close. I'm not scared of any of these teams. Today's game is meaningless as far as standings. Moving up one spot or down doesn't matter much, really. I think they should rest Allen after a series, but McDermott doesn't want to. That could be bad. No, I don't believe that's going to be the case. They're not going to expose Josh to much today. They're going to want to rest some guys. These New York Jets are not a great team, and I believe Mitch Trubisky can go out there, and the Bills, by force of will, can win this game. And you do want them to win the game. Number one, because you don't want to close out the stadium regular season annals with a loss to the worst team perhaps in the league. Number two, you want to maintain at least that 6th seed. But you certainly want to do it while resting some guys. JTL 999 in the house. Go Bills, baby. Thank you very much. Yesterday's game, Carolina and the Bucks, how much do the refs play into other games like this postseason? I think the NFL needs to take a look at changing the rule to challenge pass interference. You know, I agree with that. And I brought that up on a show recently where I feel the NFL is doing a far better job. This business they came out with the Hawkeye system and the virtual measurement, you see that used in a couple of cases, but it's really not that useful. What you need is the ability to properly spot the ball. Measuring with the chains was fine. Measuring with the chains was theater that they have actually removed from the game. Stupid. But we've got pylon cams for the line to gain, not only in the goal lines as we've had them for a long time, but on the line to gain pylon cams, seeing down the line of scrimmage from both directions, and we could tell where a ball ends up. We could tell where a knee might be down and calling the ball dead there. We can talk about whether passes were caught or not. I seriously think that it's, I mean, we're even using it, for example, to determine possession on a pass. Was it held long enough to be called a fumble, or was a football move not made? I mean, if you're looking for football moves to define something on a call, why not on pass interference? And if you did catch the college semifinals, which are some of the best college football games I've ever seen. I mean, Ole Miss and Georgia, wow. And that was even tough a little bit. There was a couple of interference calls on Georgia's last two drives that helped Georgia that were decent calls. But to get back to the point, they tried to challenge, have a situation where you could challenge pass interference a few years ago. And it didn't work out because I think it's too highly emotionally charged of a situation. And you'd have teams doing it perhaps where it's not even warranted. But I do think that the business of having the cameras as good as they are now and having guys that are looking at each aspect of these cameras, I think you can make a determination on this. And the problem is you cannot have snap judgment calls made by referees and then have this changing a game. And we saw last night, it was in the Seahawks and 49ers game where there was a backward pass by Brock Purdy to the back. The ball was not caught. If it had been a forward pass, you would have called it an incompletion. But it was a backward pass. They ended up saying, okay, the ball went out of bounds. It never went close to being out of bounds. But an umpire or linesman had blown the whistle. That's you can't have that. You can't have that. That was a free ball, and it ended up being grabbed by a Seahawk defender, which had it not been for the whistle, it would have been Seahawks football. Now, they ended up winning because the 49ers did not look good, but you can bet Tony Corrente and his crew will probably not find their way into a playoff game. There was some miserable calls in that football game. But yes, in answer to your question, Black Cloud, I believe that much more of the officiating, the final call on some of these situations needs to be made by using the available footage, which is high resolution from many angles. I mean, let's just do it. Defensive holding and other made-up calls. Yeah, you know, the other thing that should be brought into play, especially on the pass interference calls, is if the ball is actually catchable. If you've got a ball that's falling 5 yards out of bounds and 7 yards downfield from where the receiver actually is, come on, you can't call pass interference on those things. That needs to be adjusted, and I think I've seen that actually done a couple of times. Calls should be challengeable if the refs from upstairs in New York aren't going to overturn anything clear as day that isn't a call or a call. Yes, that's I could see that. I do believe, though, the NFL just has to get better at doing some of these things. For example, the throw to Keyshawn Boutte that was called complete during the Bills-Patriots game on the sideline, and clearly the ball hit the ground and was moving. The NFL just can't let that go by. They can't. And I don't know if that was early in the game, maybe they weren't expecting something at that point. Guys, get your shit together, and these have to be right. Too much is riding on these. Midlow Viking is in the house. The Jets will do all they can to lose this game. It's too bad the final game isn't one with a lot to play for. Well, this is actually Miss Taylor Salty's idea, and I have to give this to her. She had what I think is a brilliant idea. You have teams vying to lose to get the number one pick. It's detrimental to the game as far as what we're seeing and what players are doing on the field. It just goes against the grain of everything. Her idea, which is a really, really good one. I don't know if this would be a little bit too late to do it. We used to have the Pro Bowl, if you recall, the weekend between the conference title games and the Super Bowl. Now, you might be able to do it on another night, maybe at a special Thursday night situation. Let's say a week and a half after the end of the season, let's say. There will be no games past Sunday night, of course. No Monday night game, no Thursday night game, because next week starts the playoffs. But if you did on a Thursday or a Friday night, the weekend after the wild card game, her suggestion is to take the two teams that are at the bottom that would be drafting 1 and 2, whichever they may be, and pit those two teams against each other in a special playoff game, and the winner gets the number one pick. The NFL would wake up in their money-sucking ways and determine that would be a great thing to have as another thing. And then at least you'd have one game where somebody was trying to win that number one selection rather than to lose it. Yeah, that call you speak of the ref saying the ball went out of bounds was horrific. The whistle called the play dead, and the guy was in bounds of the ball and stopped. Terrible to see it. Tony Corrente pulled that call out of his ass. I don't know where he was coming from that. I don't know where the pool reporters were asking about that afterwards. If there's any question about that, and that linesman or whoever the hell he was right on that, blowing that bad. And at the very least, you cannot allow that crew to be involved in anywhere near a playoff game. They can't even show up there and sell concessions. You don't want them near those games. Jeff Chester is with us. What do we do with Keon Coleman in the offseason? Twice benched for disciplinary reasons and a healthy scratch multiple games. Now, it's an interesting question. And I think we have to look at the fact that he's young. He's, of course, had 2 seasons now where it's not going well. But he's got size. He's got tools. I think you still have to give it another chance unless you see something happening in the offseason. But you definitely want to try to at least trade for him, because the instant you give him away, he's going to go be great for some other team, like a Kyle Shanahan coached 49ers or whatever. Jeff Chester, he's benched today also. And that's saying something, because you're going to have the Bills with a number of inactives today. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and talk about the injuries. First of all, on the Jets side, we've got a number of players out for the Jets. Michael Clemens, defensive lineman, he's out, did not practice all week. Isaiah Davis, out, concussion protocol. Xavier Newman, out with a knee. Quantez Stiggers, cornerback, out with a knee. Mason Taylor, tight end, out. That's a neck injury. Jelani Woods, out with a hamstring. Brees Hall has a knee. He's questionable. Brandon Stevens is questionable. Now, Brees Hall had a limited participation Thursday and Friday. Brandon Stevens did not have participation on Friday, but they're both questionable. Tyrod Taylor is questionable. I think Cook's actually going to be playing today. And Joe Tippmann, their offensive lineman, is questionable. Cam Jones, Harrison Phillips, we remember Horrible Harry, is now a Jet. And Kene and Gwangu were full participants. And then on the Bills side, as we probably know, many of us already, Terrell Bernard, who's got a calf and is out. Daquan Jones with a calf that had a setback. That's the same calf he injured a while back, is out. Jordan Poyer is out. And, of course, some of these, if today's a playoff game, a couple of those guys might be playing, but I think it's clear that you want to give them today off and treat this almost like a bye for them. Joey Bosa is questionable with a hamstring. He was limited on Friday. You got to take the limited things with a grain of salt, of course, because if it's a Friday limitation, that is usually a walkthrough. So when stating a practice, a player was a limited or full participant, that has some caveats to it. Big Phil, Jordan Phillips, and Dalton Kincaid are also both questionable. Ankle and knee in those cases. Kincaid, they're kind of just maintaining that injury. He might have a little bit of surgery over the offseason. Big Phil will remember when he hurt that ankle. I believe that was versus Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. Josh, of course, was limited with that foot. I think we'll see him for a play today, and I think you go out and get Trubisky some time. Who else we've got? James Cook had veteran rest. AJ Epinesa, illness. There's been some illnesses going around. Tylen Grable had a personal issue, but was a full participant on Friday. No game status. Reggie Gilliam, Dawson Knox, both full participants, and no game designation. Cam Lewis and Matt Prater. Prater should be back today. Deion Walker had an illness. Tre'Davious White had an illness. There has been something making its way through the locker room. Nothing serious. Sean McDermott described it merely as, hey, it's this time of year, people get sick and get some colds. Some of that probably is if their team doctors think a guy is contagious with something, spreading around a cold or a minor flu, that it's not so much that the player can't participate in practice, it's they don't want them there in order to have the rest of the team protected from that. And we'll see about whatever other inactives they have. I'm sure Ryan Vandermark will see some time on the offensive line at some point. It's very interesting to note that the Bills have never lost a game where Ryan Vandermark has started. Just keep that under your hat. As far as the schedule around the league goes today, of course, we had our Saturday games yesterday. Tampa Bay that looked like it had its problems, but they got past Carolina 16-14. Carolina had a late score there to make it close. And that puts Tampa Bay, I believe, in the driver's seat for winning the division, but the outcome of the Saints and Falcons game has bearing on that. And I have a feeling that they need the Saints to win because the Falcons did beat Tampa Bay. And it's a strange situation with that division, but I know Tampa Bay is waiting on a result. And then Seattle secured the number 1 seed in the NFC, roundly defeating the 49ers. People keep on telling me how great Brock Purdy is. I don't know. I think he's Mac Jones with a better face. I just don't see it with Purdy. The Seahawks didn't see it with him last night either. If you want to predict the Bills going to the Super Bowl, you could very well imagine that and wonder if that would be against one of his draft mates from that 2018 draft. The guy picked 5 slots before him, Sam Darnold, who went number 2 to the Jets. Now in a Seahawks uniform, and that would be quite a Super Bowl, Buffalo and Seattle. Now, the rest of the schedule today and what games have bearing, we can just go through it quickly here. Cleveland is at Cincinnati. You can get tickets starting at $27.60. That sounds like 1980, but that's what it actually is just teams that aren't going anywhere. Dallas is at the Giants at MetLife. Again, no bearing on the Bills, $25 tickets. Green Bay is at Minnesota, and who knows what's going to happen with that game. Green Bay got their asses beat by the Ravens last week. I'm not sure what they're playing for exactly. Indianapolis at Houston, definitely a Buffalo bearing. You'd like to see Indianapolis win. And at times, it's not so much about how it affects the Bills. Sometimes you just like to see one of your nemesis teams not looking good. That makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. But Houston likely wins that game and hangs on to the 5 seed. Then you've got New Orleans, Atlanta. Of course, that is the game that has such bearing on Tampa Bay's fate. Tennessee at Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville, of course, actually could end up moving to the 2 seed with a win and a Patriots loss. So that game is of importance to them. And if they win and all other things stay the same, they will win the AFC South. But they do have to play a game because they need to win that game. Because if they don't, and Houston likely beats the Indianapolis Colts, Houston gets the AFC South championship and not Jacksonville. So Jacksonville has to play a game today, and they are a likely opponent of the Bills next week. If the Bills can rest a lot of people and they go to Jacksonville, with Jacksonville having to had to put in a week's worth of work here today, that would be a good thing. So basically, we're rooting for Tennessee to give Jacksonville as hard a game as possible. Arizona is at the Rams, no bearing on the Bills. Detroit at Chicago, no bearing on the Bills. Those are both the start of the 425 slot, which is large today, as big as you probably will ever see for a 4 o'clock slot. And that's largely because you've got the Patriots and Dolphins, which has bearing on the number 1 seed in terms of the Broncos and Chargers playing. And since Broncos-Chargers is out west, and then you've got Buffalo and the Jets also, with Buffalo with its wild card implications, all of those games are at 425. And even Kansas City at Las Vegas, which has no bearing. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 425 contests. And of course, those that are meaningful for the Bills would be the Chargers at the Broncos. Broncos vying for the number 1 seed again. Chargers resting people. Miami at New England. Miami's been playing better, and Miami has often had a little bit of New England's number. That should be an interesting game. But once again, New England has to play there. They're not only vying for the number 1 seed if in some event the Broncos lose to the Chargers, but they're also have to fend off the Jaguars. Because the Jaguars can move into the 2 with the New England loss. So once again, New England has to play. And if they were to lose, they'd move into the 3. But again, you'd want to see the Bills facing a team next weekend in the wild card round that actually had to play a game today. The Bills can kind of rest people anyway, because between Miami and Jacksonville, I'm sorry, between the Patriots and Jacksonville, whether Buffalo is 6 or 7, they're going to probably be seeing one of those, depending on how their games work out. And then Washington at Philadelphia. And then tonight, of course, a huge game. The Ravens at the Steelers. I've got the Ravens in this game. The Steelers are without DK Metcalf, receiver. And I didn't hear a bunch about it, but apparently TJ Watt has a punctured lung. I saw him on the sideline this past weekend. I don't know what the hell he was doing, if he's, doing bong hits in a low pressure chamber or something like that. Who knows? But my goodness. Got a few more in here from you guys. Let's Acid Wizard. Acid. And we all become wizards. Bill's about to put 40 on the Jets. I'd take it. As long as that's one more point, I'd be good. Black Cloud, one would hope, Acid Wizard, but I don't see that happening. They barely beat the Browns. The Browns and Jets have two very different defenses. And, we don't have to remind anybody that those same Browns that were supposed to lay down and, with a nice clean doormat for the Bills to step on, beat the Steelers last week, 13-6. And this idea that we could take a result from teams playing two other teams and sort of apply it in using math, there's no transitive properties between these games. There are so many things that are so different in so many of these that it makes it very difficult to assume that one or the other thing is going to happen. No, and Black Cloud was saying I wasn't talking about the defense. It was a stab at our offense. Offense is going to be just fine, guys. It is. This is the end of the season. The Bills have the sense of where they're sitting, and it's going to be. So Watt is playing tonight. That's interesting to hear. Okay, that's cool. Thanks, badass. Cecil McDog is in the house. Watt was getting some sort of treatment from staff trainers, and they screwed up. Really? I'm trusting they no longer have jobs at this point. Bong hit sounds nice. Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Get your. It's going to be a great afternoon of football. Get your bongs ready, your pre rolls, or your little square of paper with the character Goofy printed on it. You know what I'm talking about, Acid Wizard. Ralph, Mississippi representing. Love my Bills. Jimmy Key. And how about your Ole Miss? Was that not the greatest college football game you have ever seen? Ole Miss in Georgia? And I just really like the result. I mean, and the two teams were really differentiated in essence by their quarterbacks and indeed the quarterbacks' mothers. Whereas the winner, Trinidad Chambliss, great name for a quarterback. Trinidad Chambliss prayed with his mother, who was leaning over the bottom row of seats there, because they have prayed together before every single game he has ever played, high school or college, basketball or football. She's been at them all. And on the other hand, this Gunnar Stockton's mother, who looks like somebody you would not want to tangle with, first of all. But I mean, naming your kid Gunnar is, I don't know. Do these kids know they're going to be quarterbacks when they're infants the day they're born? There's probably a really good reason behind it, but there was that difference there, and between those guys, but Ole Miss was just incredible, and the refs even tried to take that away from Ole Miss with those. It was interference calls on both of Georgia's last two drives, and then the holding that got them close, but Ole Miss, man, and then their field goal kicker Carnero, amazing stuff. It was a dry needling procedure like acupuncture. They actually accidentally punctured his lung. Jesus. Only in Pittsburgh. Sounds like what happened to Tyrod. Yeah, actually, I remember that. That was what, at the beginning of last season, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't hear about Tyrod. I figured the Jets pulled him because they want to lose and secure the second overall draft pick. That's possible too, and there's also injury clauses that are built into some of these deals. I mean, that's why Tua is not playing quarterback. They don't want Tua anymore, but they don't want to destroy his value by him getting injured. And plus, if he gets injured, they owe him money in like a post-June 1st settlement or whatever, however that works. But that's the case with Tua. You know, it's an injury clause, and that's why he is sitting. Yeah, named after Felix Trinidad. Has nothing to do with Trinidad Tobago, exactly, as we heard on the broadcast. Thank you, badass, for that. Cecil McDonald, not tired of the Jets when he was with the Chargers. It's how Justin Herbert got his first start. Is that right? I guess that is right, because I was thinking the Jets. Boy, I didn't think that was that long ago for Herbert, when Herbert got his first start, that was the case. It seemed more recent with that situation with Tyrod. So interesting there. Tyrod got his lung punctured by team doctors, and Herbert went in for him 5 years ago. Well, I'll take that, and that just gives you the sort of sense of timing on some of this stuff. I wonder if anyone will want to take it to The only situation I could think where Tua might be interesting, and it would take up an idea I've had for years about offensive possibility. Tua is probably not the right guy because he's not sturdy enough, but an idea for an offense that puts two quarterbacks on the field. Now, of course, they'd have to be two quarterbacks that are like, Kyler Murray can move. He's got speed. He can run. Tua, you don't want to expose to that so much. But if you had a situation in a two-quarterback offense where both quarterbacks were athletic enough to be receivers coming out of a backfield, it would be an interesting situation. But, yeah, I don't know. Seriously, I don't know if Tua's got a spot. Hopefully the Bengals wouldn't, take him. I mean, I think Joe Burrow would love to be maybe in Miami. Yeah, Saints tried that with Breeze and Taysom Hill. Yeah, to an extent. I don't. But you'd have to have two guys that were kind of studs. I mean, Drew Brees was small and was never going to be a threat to move the ball like some of these others. It would behoove Tua if he retires. You really should have retired after the Bills gave him two contuas in the same game years ago. Let's see. We just had Bill's announcement. I don't like the Bills mobile app. I don't like their apps really at all. No, there it is. Okay. Together one more time at Highmark. That was kind of a goopy, sort of a reminiscent thing. I know the last game at the stadium is important. Again, if the playoffs turn out like I am predicting, then the last game at the stadium will be the AFC title game with the Bills hosting the Chargers. But in terms of trying to make this particular game memorable just because it's the last, I don't really agree with that. The fact is that the stadium is memorable because of all of the other memories that have built up into it, the time invested, the years and decades invested in those memories. Those are set. You're not going to tarnish those by what happens in the stadium today. So I wouldn't be out there with a bunch of starters trying to win this game and put on some sort of big show for the last game at the Ralph. What you're really wanting to do is not so much to do with this stadium. What you really want to do are things that allow you to raise a banner at the new stadium next September. That's what you want to do. But I believe the Bills aren't putting anything as a higher priority than winning this Super Bowl coming up. And you could say, yeah, the offense has been failing the past few weeks. 0 points versus the Eagles in the first half. In the rain. Tough time against the Browns. Certainly. Yeah, all those things. But when it actually gets down to the playoffs, I just think it's going to be a different story. And the thing that I was most heartened by in that Philadelphia game, watching it play by play, not really getting the emotional feel of it because I already knew the result because some people had the temerity to call us when we urged them not to tell us the outcome of the game. They called anyway as we sat in the dark. And I'm like holding my ears going, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. But they did. And then my family told me, yeah, they lost. And the term we heard was sickening loss. I guess you could say that from the standpoint that they were close to winning it. But I was thinking it was like, oh, Jesus, they lost 35-10 or something, and Barkley ran all over them. No. And what I really loved about that game is how the defense actually looked. This team is going to be fine in the playoffs. And the reason is that if you go and ask behind closed doors in dark corners of rooms where no one's listening, of all the other AFC teams that will be in this tournament, and you really ask them to give you an answer from the heart, nobody wants to play the Bills and Josh Allen in the playoffs. No, they do not. Because I don't think the Bills, who do you really fear in these playoffs? Well, we're going to find out how it all goes down today. We're now at 12:09 p.m., 12:10 now here in the East. 20 minutes we'll be at the pre-games. Going to get out of here soon so everybody can get lined up and ready to watch these afternoon contests. It's a great weekend of football because you've got all these division games that are going to influence so much. And again, for our viewing guide, what are we looking for today? Well, the two games I'm most concerned with, obviously, would be Indianapolis at Houston. Because, yes, Indianapolis is not starting Justin Herbert. Indianapolis is not starting Phillip Rivers. They've got Riley Leonard. That doesn't mean that half of Houston's defense can't get wiped out. Tennessee at Jacksonville. I want to see Tennessee bruise them every chance that they can get. They probably won't win the game, but leave a freaking mark. Tennessee owes the Bills for the Music City Miracle. Most people say that was payback for the comeback. But there's still a toll to be paid there. And they could pay that by exacting some retribution on the Jaguars and bruising them up just enough so they're tender enough for the Bills to dine on leisurely next week. So Tennessee and Jacksonville, Indianapolis and Houston, both 1 o'clock kickoffs. And there are really only 6 1 o'clock games. Cincinnati at Cleveland, Dallas at the Giants, Green Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans and Atlanta. If you're interested at all, New Orleans and Atlanta does have the implications for the AFC South champion, or NFC South champion, rather. Arizona at the Rams. The Rams may well be resting people today. That seems to be a Los Angeles thing today. Detroit at Chicago. What a freaking disaster. What a disaster for Detroit on Christmas Day. Jared Goff with just a nightmare game. And, of course, at the 425 slots, all three at the same time. Chargers at Broncos, Miami at New England, Jets at Buffalo. And then tonight, of course, the playoffs essentially start tonight. They really kind of did in certain cases this weekend and even last weekend with teams vying and then getting knocked out. But the Baltimore and Pittsburgh game is truly a playoff game because it is the AFC North championship game. And the winner will win that championship and be the number 4 seed in the playoffs. The loser is out buying chips and salsa. And perhaps Stella's best beer ever. Let's get the rest of your comments here. Today's game is going to suck, according to Mr. Cecil McDowd. The Jets are like a low-ranked college team. I am looking forward to seeing if Judon plays, though. You know, I'd forgotten all about Matthew Judon, and I like this idea because he's just the kind of guy that I think can show up in the playoffs and make a few plays and look scary like he used to. Thank God I was at Houston would lick the old man. Now, Riley Leonard, I don't know. He was good. I think he'd be a good pro quarterback. He just needs some time. Kill, lick, same thing. I guess Josh will play until he gets touchdown number 40. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think they're concerned with those records at all. They're concerned with this tournament that starts next week. The only thing I want to see from the 1 o'clock's game, and it's Carl Tomlin with us. Welcome in. The only thing I want to see from the 1 o'clock games is for the Texans to hold Jonathan Taylor to 45 yards or less. Sounds like a FanDuel bet in there somewhere. I want to see any possible opponent of the Bills being bruised and bloodied prior to when the Bills might see them. Henry could be a problem for Cook, too. I think he's 137 yards behind him. All right. What's up, brother? Happy New Year. Smash that like button for the Ralph Rant. Thank you, Tommy. Welcome in, brother. Happy New Year. I'm sure you've got your pregame out of the way, and we've been talking about the import of these games today. They certainly have made the last game of the season interesting. And it's not a life or death situation for the Bills, as it is for some other teams in this last game. But with some of the other contests that are going on, there's a lot of interest. And again, I'm not expecting the seeding to go that far differently than what I predicted. But what I would like to see are teams that the Bills might face having to put forth a lot of effort and expend a lot of blood, sweat, and tears trying to win their games today. Anything to weaken them before we get in front of them. Bills Mafia, stand all the way up. Let's go. Bird 3743 is in here with us. We're going to take it for a few minutes more here. We are planning on shutting down the show here at 12:30 at the start of network coverage. Prior to these games, of course, all the pre-games are going so far already. I don't think there's games of note for us where we're interested in actives or not. But certainly I'm going to be going between Tennessee and Jacksonville and Indianapolis and Houston, watching those. Yeah, I think I like this comment. Judon playing for Bird here. Yes. Aggressive, and it's interesting when you take a talent like that gets next to a coach like Ryan Nielsen to see what they can actually do. He might get some minutes out there going, and if nothing else, to just protect other Bills players. But I want to see the Bills just get through this game. I don't need to see a huge outpouring of points. I just want to see a win. And ensuring their 6th seed position, if not better, and then just see where the chips fall on what teams they're going to be meeting. We are going to be back tonight with a post-game show. It's currently scheduled for 7:45, which would be 20 minutes after the supposed time the game would end at 7:25. Game ends a little bit early, which it very well might if there's more running and so forth. We'll be on early, but that's the schedule right now. And we will certainly be talking about not only the game itself, about the feelings from the stadium and so forth, but also about what has been unraveled as far as the playoff questions and get a better feel for who the opponents are going to be, because we'll know everything essentially in the postgame show tonight, with the exception, and that's just with the exception of where the 4 seed will be. Either Pittsburgh or the Ravens. I'm predicting the Ravens. But it's interesting because that's the only possibility out of that game, is which is the champion, and that champion will be the 4 seed. So we will be able to predict everything else in terms of what the matchups are. And that's what we'll get into quite a bit. We'll make it a brief post game tonight, focusing on that, not so much probably on the game script and so forth, because as we know, at 8:15 or 8:20 p.m., whatever the Sunday night game starts, that's actually the beginning of the playoffs. So this will be pretty interesting. No, Taylor Salty's in the house. Yeah, you can see the new shelf here. We've got this. This is a great book from Where Else Would You Rather Be? And it's about the Ralph and its entire history. And not only with the Super Bowl years, but the concerts. There's Mick Jagger. We were at the World Series of Rock, myself and my wife, at that show. That was the 4th of July, 1982. I think it was Journey, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, probably George Thorogood also, I think I'm remembering. This looks very similar to when the American flag was out at the Dolphins visiting the Bills in November of 2015. That was the last game my dearly departed father ever attended. That day, we were actually behind the glass up in the that club with sort of the auditorium style seating. It was very cool. Food was great, drinks great, but it was inside. It wasn't cold. Couldn't really hear the feel of the crowd. I would always be outside for the games. But thank you very much, dear daughter. And then we've got the 4 historic figurines here. Jim Kelly, Marv Levy, Josh Allen, Sean McDermott. Now, I was disappointed on the box. It shows Sean McDermott actually with the Sean sort of, beard like I sport here. This one doesn't have it. I remember my dad going crazy when OJ would get a long run. Yes, absolutely. I saw OJ in the rock pile. 1972. When they beat the 49ers. Norm the Bills fan, big game for Ray Davis today, you bet. I wonder if they would sit Ty Johnson and elevate Frank Gore Jr. That would be interesting. I've been waiting for this super win for a long time. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that the Bills are not going into this on a long winning streak. Long winning streaks are not good. If that was ever proven, it was proven when the Patriots, who had gone the first time anyone had gone 16-0 in the regular season, and met up with the New York Giants, who had to take the wild card road to get to the Super Bowl. And of course, that was famous for Eli Manning escaping that sack and the helmet catch. That helped the Giants win that game. Bird is hyped. We're all hyped, baby. Norm, the Bills fan. When will NFL release dates, times for Wild Card Weekend? After Ravens, Steelers? Yeah, I imagine so. And you've already gotten a little bit of a clue from them, based on yesterday's games. Now, Tampa Bay could likely be in the playoffs, but Seattle and San Francisco both will be. And since they played on Saturday, and then on the wild card weekend, this is the one thing I don't like, is they take one of those games and put them on a Monday night. I don't agree with having a team have any kind of rest disadvantage. With a Monday night wild card weekend game. That's a rest disadvantage going into the next week, that would be. But since San Francisco and Seattle both played on Saturday, you would anticipate that San Francisco, wherever they're sitting in the seating, I don't know if they're 5 or 6, would be facing the 4 or the 3 on the Saturday. And you're going to have one AFC and one NFC game on Saturday for the wild card. They used to do them at 1, 4:25, and 8:15. Now the Saturday will be just like yesterday, with a 4 o'clock game and then an 8:15 game. Sunday, you'll have 3 more of those 6 wild card games. Those will be at 1 o'clock, 4:25, and 8:15, and then you'll have a Monday night contest. Now, since the Bills are playing late on Sunday, who knows? It could be the Monday night game that they travel to. But it's pretty likely the Bills would not be the Saturday contest, although you really can't say that because there were no AFC teams playing on Saturday yesterday. It was all NFC: Carolina, Tampa Bay, Seattle, and San Francisco. I mean, unless they put 2 NFC games on the Saturday. But I think they try to arrange it where teams are not suffering big rest disadvantages to other teams. OJ sat next to me at the only Braves basketball game I went to. That is very, very interesting. I remember the Buffalo Braves. I was a New York Giant fan that day. Oh, yeah. Helmet catch by Odell Beckham Jr. Wish the Bills had those refs last week with a tiptoe. No catch. That was a catch. That's true, except that wasn't Odell Beckham that made that catch. It was, got to find out now. Yes, David Tyree. It was David Tyree. I knew that. The Beckham made the huge catch in the end zone that season. That was one of the most amazing catches ever. But that play during the Super Bowl 17, or no, what am I talking about? 17. That's ridiculous. That would have been Super Bowl 42 in 2008. And Tyree pinned the ball against his helmet. Badass, I envy you. That's cool with that story. Maybe we got another back who could break a record. Black Cloud. That was David Tyree. No apologies necessary. If you're here at the Ralph Rant, you could do no wrong. So we're going to start winding it up here. Again, like I said, we will be back with a post-game show and a discussion of what we're looking at in the playoffs. Hopefully, there won't be much to discuss from the game, although, with the exception, it was boring and nobody got hurt, and the Bills won. I've never hated the Jets as much as the Dolphins or the Patriots. In fact, I was a little kid, and this is when the league had gotten going. I think the merger was close, but there was some book we had, and it was talking about football, explaining football, but it was a kid's book, and it had the Bills and the Jets featured in it. It was interesting. All right. Carl's here. Have all the starters play and Josh snaps the ball once. Call timeout and have Trubisky, Grable, Anderson, Van Pran, Granger, Vandermark, and Garage come in and play the rest of the game and get healthy. Yes, take advantage of this. Take advantage of it. And even to the point of, no, you don't want the Jets winning in your stadium on the day you're closing it. And they probably can't with the type of team that they have. That probably won't happen. But you want to be rested. You want to be rested because the likelihood is you're going to be facing next week a team that had to actually play a game today to maintain its spot. And the Bills have had to do that some in the past. They don't have to do that. Yes, injuries hurt us every playoffs. Well, hopefully not this year. But here we go. It's time. Week 18 is upon us. We'll see what happens. You know my predictions. Again, I've got the Bills going through the playoffs and then hosting the Chargers at home for the AFC title game, and then heading out to Josh's homeland in Northern California to take on somebody in the Super Bowl. Only the Jets would be dumb enough to win today. They were locked into the second overall draft pick with a loss. And Cecil, if you didn't hear it, Taylor Salty has the very best idea. Again, I'll repeat it. You take the two teams that are going to pick 1 and 2 in the draft, and of course, you want to lose to get that one. Well, what you do is you do a Thursday night game after wild card weekend. So it gives the teams a chance to rest. So they each have like a mini bye. So a Thursday night game before the divisional playoffs after wild card weekend, and you pit those two teams against one another. Doesn't matter. They're both from AFC or NFC, whatever the case. The teams that are scheduled to pick 1 and 2, and you play a game, and the winner of that game gets to pick the number 1 pick. I think that's the greatest idea, and that would be a certain hit for the NFL. But anyway, let's get ready to watch some football here. I think we've got it all covered here. Cecil McDowd with the Loser Bowl idea. I love it. Yeah, that's Taylor Salty thinking there. She has she's involved in rehearsals. I don't think she's doing it today, but involved in rehearsals all week. She'll probably be rehearsing while the Bills play their wild card game next week. Fortunately, though, the Bills have never lost when she's doing something in a theater. So we've got that going for us, which is nice, as Bill Murray once said. But as the Ralph always says, let's go watch some football. Be good, do good, God bless, and go Bills. I am the Ralph, and this is the Ralph Rant. We'll see you tonight at the postgame. Enjoy.